Hello Internet, and welcome back to my humble abode. So today I'm going to be going over in a step-by-step process how you can create your own YouTube show, and I've actually repeated this process for 2 shows that I've created, both my cool friends and my weekly trivia murder parties that I host. So the first thing that you want to do is map out a list of people that you would want to have on your show. This could be people that you want to have guest on your show. This could be people that you want to maybe collaborate with in the future, or this could be people that you possibly want to host with your show on a regular basis. I want you to mind map out exactly like who you want to have on your show. So for me, what I started doing is I wanted to have guests on my show. So I created a spreadsheet of people who I wanted to have on my show. Now, when you're doing this, it's important to do it as if there is no limit. Don't not put someone on this list in order to like say, oh, that person's too big. Like, no matter how big that person is, put them on the list. No matter how small that person is, put them on the list. Now, if you're creating a show and you want to collaborate with someone, then this process might look a little bit different. You might want to put attributes of a person that you want to collaborate with, or that you would want to create a show with long term, that you may not have met yet, but you know this person is going to have these certain attributes. And in that phase, I would want you to mind map out, like, what does this person look like that you would want to have a podcast with long term? Like, what are their goals? What are the outcomes that they want to have that you both share? Or maybe some of the things that you don't quite have, like some of the strengths that you have and some of the weaknesses that you have that maybe they would want to cover for you. Now, next up is going to be the name of your show. Now, it's important that you don't overthink this. Some people will spend months coming up with a name for their show. You shouldn't be doing that. This should be like, if it's a half an hour that you're spending coming up with the name of your show, that's way too long. It took me 5 minutes to come up with some of the names for my shows. It's important to know that when you're coming up with a name, you can always rebrand later. Names, logos, they should not take too long. Logos can be outsourced to people. If you're not good with design or any of that stuff can be outsourced to people who are very good at that stuff. Do not spend your time and energy when it can be spent in other places. Outsource it to people who are good at that stuff if necessary. Otherwise, don't spend too much time on the logo. The logo that I have for my cool friends, both the name and the logo, took me a grand total of 5 minutes each between the logo and the name. And the reason why is because what it boiled down to was like, I knew that I could come back to those and rebrand at some point in the future. And I threw it together, and it turned out to be a good fit, and I stuck with it ever since. Know that you can always come back to these things later. The next thing you'll probably want to do if you are doing especially if you are doing any sort of live production, but I would even extend this to recorded productions as well, is your branding. Any sort of video production, but this is also going to extend to recorded productions as well, is like, what is your branding for your show going to look like? What's the cover for the podcast going to look like? For my show, it's like we have a custom overlay. Now, I mentioned like, hey, this stuff can always be outsourced to people who are very good at this if you're not. And for this step of the process, that's still absolutely true. There is a website that I used called Placeit.net, and there will be a link for that down in the description of this YouTube video. you can go and use that. That is literally a drag and drop website that you can use to make all this stuff. I use Placeit for all of my stuff. I use it to create my overlays, both for my YouTube shows that I do, and I use it for all of my Twitch streaming, and I can make stuff in a matter of minutes, and I don't need to pay anyone to outsource stuff to. And it's a fantastic place where you can go and create brand and stuff just for your YouTube shows and any other kind of shows that you create. Next is your scripts. Now, we have this list of people that we're going to be reaching out to in order to get people on our shows. So when you're reaching out for the very first time, you are going to want to say a specific set of phrases, and you'll be able to get a copy of this script down in the description of this YouTube video as well. But essentially, this is what you're going to want to say. This can be done in video form or text form. Hi, person's name. I'm currently working on creating a new, and then describe your type of show, whether it be a YouTube show, live show, podcast. Hi, name. I'm currently working on creating a new YouTube show, and I'm in the midst of planning my very first episodes. It's going to, and then here's a good important pause. We want to describe exactly your vision for this show. Describe your vision, use some sort of comparison, and that'll help really explain what you're going for in this. Like, say, oh hey, it's kind of like this example of something relevant that you might be familiar with. I say, oh hey, it's kind of like Jeopardy for nerdy video game people. And then say, would you like to be one of my very first guests? Now, here's how that's going to sound in completion. Hi, name. I'm currently working on creating a new YouTube show, and I'm in the midst of planning my very first episodes. It's going to be like Jeopardy for nerdy video game people. Would you like to be one of my very first guests? Now, here's the interesting thing in that. I've found that even if we don't have any episodes recorded yet, if you can explain your vision to people, they can still get behind it and believe in you if you can explain your vision. And that goes very far. So the next step is they reply with either yes or no. And assuming they say yes, you then want to reply with, great, how would you feel about, and then you want to mention exactly a specific day, time, day of the week, etc. And then what exactly we're doing with this is we want to boil things down to a yes or no question. So with the first one we did, we boiled everything down, like we explained everything, what's going on, and we want to know, hey, would you like to join this? This is happening. And they reply yes or no. They say yes, like, okay. Now, how would you feel about January 4th at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time this upcoming Sunday? So we're explaining a specific date, a specific time zone, so there's no area of confusion. So they reply with yes, they reply with no, they tell you if that works. If it does, fantastic, you got your first guest. If they say no, then you work from there. And that's essentially how that script works and how you go about from there. Again, if you would like a copy of this script, it will be down in the description of this YouTube video. If you want to know more about filming, scripting, and editing your YouTube videos, I encourage you to go check out the Yoda of YouTube challenge, where we go over this process of reaching out to people for creating your own shows, and even more processes of creating and managing your own YouTube channels. For now, I am Ben Ebig, and it has been a pleasure to serve you.